Alright, so I don't look like Pastor. He's a might bit older. Salt and pepper up top. Huh? Is it on? Okay. Now is it on?
No.
Now this is on, I know that. See the battery like it's on. So. Okay, well. Yes. How about now? Yeah, I don't like these things at all. Mike's and me don't get along. Is it on now? No? Okay, whatever. Anyways. So, Pastor went fishing this week. And he will be back, what, later tonight, right?
Yeah.
So, he asked me if I could fill in. And I said, why not? Before I realized that our all-nighter was Friday. So I came to the all-nighter, and then I told my wife, I said, hey, you gotta wake me up like midday so I can write this thing. And she's like, you got that rope yet? And I was like, no, that's true. Hi, is that bad? So, yeah. So this is my notes. That's it. And that's normal for me, trust me. We're going to be in Matthew 23. We're going to start in 1 through 7. Like he read in the beginning. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to come on, guys. Sure. I have no idea. None. Then Jesus spoke to the multitudes and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore they tell you to observe whatever they tell you to observe, that observe, and do. But do not do according to their works. For what they say, do not do. I looked this up. So the seat of Moses, we actually learned from history later on, many synagogues would actually have a physical seat where people would actually sit and teach. You could equivalent that to the pulpit now, which was kind of crazy. What Jesus is saying here is, yes, they have authority to be teachers. He's actually telling his disciples and the onlookers, they have the authority for what they are saying. However, what they do when they are not in front of you, not do that. There was a reason that Jesus said this. He calls them hypocrites a lot. A lot. For they bind heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do to be seen by men. They make their fraud. Okay, and if you don't understand that word like I didn't, I had to look it up. Okay? That's a box in which you put prayers in Scripture. And they would wear it around their neck. Now normally this box was like this big. Okay? Like if you were a little ways off, you would just think it was a necklace. These people had boxes. Okay? I looked this up, and from history records, they said you could see them before you could see them. You could see their box before you could tell that that was a person. And they would wear it over everything else, not under. This was breaking tradition. They wanted to be seen. They wanted to be known that, look, I have Scripture. And I carry it with me. I'll bind it wherever I can. Where was it? Okay. They love the best practice. Oh, what? Oh, right there. Quarters. Yeah. They love the best places at feasts, the best seats in the synagogues, reading in the marketplace, and be called by men, Rabbi, Rabbi. So what were these guys? You know what hypocrite means? The word hypocrite? Okay, from the Greek to now, it hasn't changed. It literally means actors. Play actors. Literally, it means stage actors. What it means. These guys were pretending to be following God. You know how dangerous this is. Let alone at a level of, I'm just going to be out in the world pretending to follow God, but pretending to follow God from a leadership position. Jesus had a very big problem with this. He uses some choice words, and we'll see. I like to start in verse 25, but I'm going to start a little before that. We're going to start in verse 16. Woe to you, blind guides, who say, whoever swears by the temple is nothing, but whoever swears by the gold of the temple, he is obligated to perform it. Fools, blind. For which is greater, the gold or the temple that sacrifices the gold? Now, I looked this up, this woe to you thing. There's two schools of thought on it. MacArthur comes down on this was like when you were saying, woe to you. Whoa. Hold up, guys. You really believe this? There's another school of thought on this. Can't remember who else. It was Spurgeon. I'm not sure. But there's another school of thought on this. The woe to you is a condemnation. Either way you take it, Jesus here is going, hold up, guys. I've got something against you. This is the Son of Man speaking from his divinity, his place of authority. This is something that they might want to sit up and pay attention to. Stern warning. And I'm going to tell you, you're not poked at that, called to action. When Jesus speaks, we should try to listen. He's using very stern words here. Blind, normally in biblical text, means not seeing God's plan. That's normally what it refers to. And that's what he's referring to here. Spiritually blind. Woe to blind guides who say, whoever swears by the temple. Really? I have to swear by the gold in the temple because you think it's valuable? And Jesus says, what's better? The temple or the gold? Well, we sacrifice gold in the temple. That's just a reagent to us. He's trying to get them to look at the whole picture. And whoever swears by the altar is nothing, but whoever swears by the gift that is on it, he is obligated to perform it. Fools, blind. For which is greater, the gift or the altar that sacrifices the gift? Therefore, he who swears by the altar swears by it and by all things on it. He who swears by the temple swears by it and by him who dwells in it. And he who swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by him who sits on it. See what he's getting to here? Jesus is really good at this. He doesn't mince words. He gets to the heart of the matter real quick. Look, you pretenders. I see you pretending up there. You've got all your little rules, all your little traditions, not following God's plan. And what's more? Traditions, God's plan. Do you want to be seen by men? Do you want God? Do you want to be spiritually blind but popular? Or do you want to be in the good graces of God? These Pharisees are learning a very important lesson. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay the tithe of mint and rice, cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, faith. These you ought to have done, without leaving the others undone. Blind guides, who strains out a gnat, follows a camel. You see what he's saying here? You have tithed on every little portion of what you have. That's neat. But you neglected the rest of the law. You turned your back on justice, mercy, faith. What are you doing? Reminds me of the story of the Pharisees coming in and they're dropping in their bags of money. What happens next? Anybody know? The widow comes and drops her 2 mites. Jesus said, who gave more? And why did she give more? Yeah, because it was all she had. They're tithing, they're giving their 10% of every little thing that comes out of their field. Just like it said. I'm going to follow it right down to the letter of the law. I'm going to get legalistic with it. Then I'm going to ignore my brother's in trouble. Reminds me of something we do today. We tithe and we show up for church, right? And then a brother calls and he says, "Hey, I'm stuck." And we say, "Well, it's 10 o'clock. Right. Or somebody calls and says, "Hey, is there any way that you guys can help me out? I'm kind of stuck in between. I was here and I need to get here and I need some help." We go, "Hey, you know what? We'll put you on a prayer list." What should we do? I think it was last week that happened. That was the funniest moment I had in a long time. Because we had a guy that got trapped. He was up north for a funeral, and he was coming through, and he needed some help getting back to another state down in the south somewhere. I can't remember where. Mississippi, Arkansas, something like that. And so he's like, "Look, I need this part for my truck." I'm like, looking around, I'm like, "I'm not your guy." Okay, like the last time I tried to fix something, Kenny was like, "Stop, dude. Stop. You're breaking stuff." All right? Even Ken was like, "Whoa, breaking stuff." So I'm like looking around like, "Where's my parts at?" So right then, right as Pastor told me this, I looked back and I saw Greg and I saw John coming through the doors, and I'm like, "Hey, Pastor, there's the guy to help us apart. Got this." So then we got him the part, and we're like, "All right, well, we got together as men and we're like, hey, well, what do we do for as far as gas for him? And pastor's walking around and he comes up and he's like, hey, you know, I'm thinking this is the number I have. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then Kenny's like, yeah, I'm thinking this is the number. And pastor comes up to me and he goes, look, this is what God's put in my head. I'm sorry, but this is the number I got. And I was like, well, good, because he put it in my pocket. That's the exact number that I had in my pocket. I was like, okay. We could have just said, hey, we'll pray for you. We could have been pretenders. That's what it looks like to actually help people. That's what it looks like to put God's word. And I'm not saying that we're perfect. Trust me. You can talk to my wife, and she'll have a laundry list of my flaws. I do some, yeah. Let's just say God is still working on me. All right? And this isn't to say, hey, we always do the right thing. This is one example where God says, do this. The Pharisees here get it. They wanted everything to be seen. There's one thing that we always do as a board. When we help somebody, it's just go. We don't let everybody know. We don't try to take a vote. We go around to the board members and we say, hey, go. We try never to make it known for a reason. We don't want praise for it. Out of God's call. Okay? Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you cleanse the outside of the cup, the dish, but inside they are full of extortion, self-indulgence. Lying Pharisees. First cleanse the inside of the cup, and the outside, awesome. I find this verse. I had this captioned in my Bible. I've read this a lot. I read this specific passage a lot, and I told my teens Bible. And I feel very, very strongly about this. I'm going to liken this to us as a country. How do you change the country? Through rules and regulations? How do you catch all the drug dealers? Through more enforcement? Change the families. Start there. Because you know what I know for a fact? Supply and demand works. If no one wants them, they'll go away. See, we can't regulate the morality. Cleanse the inside first. Right down to the person. We change the heart of the individual. And that individual changes their habits. This is the same way with life. You change the inside of the person. They start thinking about life differently. It's all of a sudden not just a burden. A lot of our issues could be changed just focused on the people. So many times we're focusing on the outside of the cup. Let's just wash the dirt off. And then it overflows again. Guess what comes out? Huh? But when we change the heart of the individuals, we change the heart of the family, then that family goes and they spread it. You ever notice how things are contagious? Like when one person starts doing something, everybody else wants to do it. This happens at work all the time. All the time. It takes one person to do something and everybody else does it. I'll tell you a funny story. It's not mine. But the person that you guys might know. Somebody's husband told it. This guy was walking through. He's in the military, right? He was walking through, and this Marine stopped, and he lined up for something. Not knowing. He just stood there. And other people stood right behind him, and they're formed a big old line. So people started asking, hey, what's this line for? And none of them knew. None of them. Everybody was like, oh, all I studied. You know what the line was for? Nothing. The guy was just stopped. Nothing. More common in the military than you think. More common than you think. At work, it only takes one person to start picking trash up, and everybody else is doing it. It only takes one person to start sharing how good their day is, and everybody wants to get in on that. Little things that you can do. Change the heart. Change the inside of the cup first. See, the Pharisees were so focused on the outside because I have to look good. You ever have anybody up here that has to look good? You better start studying with them. You better start checking every word they say. Because if you don't, you're going to get led astray real quick. If I'm focusing on the outside, not the inside, I'm going to lead you astray. Obviously, I don't focus on the outside as much as I should. Just going to throw that out there. I don't. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like the whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly, but inside are full of dead man's bones and all uncleanliness. Even so, you are also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Yeah, Sunday mornings, you're great. You got it all together. You put that beautiful mask on, I'm all good. Just like my Facebook, all good. But Monday through Saturday, you're a mess. You're the first one in the pub. Why, man? What's going on? Why, when I look at you outside of church, are you a mess? Oh. I want to look good. I want to act. I don't want to do it for real. Verse 31. Therefore, you are witnesses against yourselves, that you are sons of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up the measure of your father's guilt, serpents, brood of vipers. How can you escape the condemnation of hell? Therefore, indeed, I send you prophets, wise men, scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues, persecute, city to city, that you may come all the righteousness, that on you may come all the righteousness, all the righteous bloodshed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Uriah, son of, no, I'm not good with names, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Assuredly, I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. Think about that. Now he's speaking from a place of authority. And he's saying, I'm going to send my guys. They're going to tell you what's right. And yes, I know. You're going to kill them. You're going to crucify them. You're going to scourge them. You're going to send them away. Tell me this. How are you going to escape? How are you going to escape? See, this was a stern warning. I don't know if you know how long eternity is, but it's a long, long time. Right? They use that word constantly. How are you going to escape hell? See, if you have somebody up here acting, they're shutting the door. As believers, we've got to be checking. We've got to be checking up on each other. Just on Sundays. Not just on Thursdays, or yes, ladies are on Monday. Bible studies on Monday. We got to be checking up on each other throughout the week. Hey, how you doing on that? What we're talking about here, in a nutshell, discipleship. See, are you going to cleanse the inside? Are you going to learn how to walk in God's ways? Are you just going to put on a show for Sundays? Or Tuesdays, or Wednesdays, or whenever you want to show up? I've known people that showed up to every single service for years. And in fact, I had a kid in youth group that literally showed up to every youth group for years. I think it was 2 full years. Then we went to an Acquire the Fire and he got saved. And I was like, oh. Darren looks at me and he's like, you know why? I didn't know what he was like outside. I had no idea. He put on a really good show, though. He cleansed the outside of that cup. He knew what to say, when to say it. But all the while, he was sitting there, and he was headed to hell. He never got hooked up with anybody that would actually speak into his life. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, hen gathers her chicks. But you were not willing. Your house left. See? Your house is left to you. Spoke into your life. I wanted to just come down and go, you are all mine. Nothing will come against it. Says, that hurts. Hurts. Anyone in Jerusalem? We're singing words. Think if he was to say that about America. I wanted to come and save you from this nasty thing. Don't let me. I want you guys this week. I do a lot of challenges, by the way, especially in youth group, and all the kids are like, "Yes," because I like for people to change themselves, because I can't do it. I cannot change you. You ever heard the expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink? You can drown him, and he won't drink. Until he's ready, he won't do it. And that's how it is with people as well. Are we being hypocrites? Hard question. Are we being stage actors? We're putting on a front. That's a hard question to ask yourself. Am I acting, or do I really believe God is who He says He is? That makes this thing a lot more powerful. When God says, no, you're not supposed to do that, we're like, well, life a little easier. And He says, no, it's good, it won't. Well, stop it. I've heard the expression, God gets your attention with a pebble, and then a rock, and then a brick. Lies. What? That's true. A brick, a boulder. Yeah. Well, one thing I want one thing to happen this week. Be real with everyone you talk to. No more pretending. If this is how I really feel, this is how I really feel. If we were to be real with more people, realize how far and wide God's word would spread. You know the number one thing I hear from teens? I don't share Christ with my friends because it's too scary. There are opportunities every day. If we were real with them, when they say, oh yeah, I don't believe in that stuff, and you're like, well, you're going to hell, right? And really believe it? Quick. Ever seen a ripple? Water? Let's stop being hypocrites. Let's heed the warnings that Jesus gave us. Heal. Don't just cleanse the outside of the cup. Start from the inside first. Let's not be blind. Study. This is the only way you're going to cure your blindness, by the way. No amount of praying, no amount of humming is going to cure that. You're going to need to know the Word. You're going to need to read. I personally like reading out of a book. My child likes reading off her phone. I know several people that like the phone thing. Yeah. After like 4 verses, I'm like, I'm done. Where's my iPad? But my book, I can read it for hours. Find a method that works. Read the rest of the story. It's great. This is the last time in Matthew Jesus teaches, and then he's done. Till he speaks until chapter 26. It's almost all of his words right there. Then he's done until Revelation. Weird, huh? I got one more.